Imagine living your entire life following a single, terrifying rule that every single thing in your world must be perfectly aligned, not a single millimeter out of place. Meet Sam. He looks like any other kid, obsessed with Roblox, specifically Brookhaven. But while other kids play for fun, Sam plays for control. Behind his screen, he is not just building a virtual house, he is building a sanctuary for his broken mind. His biggest obsession? The grid in his game. If a single wall is crooked or a chair is tilted, he loses his breath. He feels a sharp, burning heat in his chest. And he does something most people would call crazy. He deletes everything. He wipes his progress and starts over for the 100th time that night. But here is where it gets dark. The obsession didn't stay in the game. It followed him out. He started waking up in the middle of the night to rearrange the kitchen cabinets, perfectly matching the layout of his virtual kitchen. If his mom moved a spoon, even an inch, Sam would stand in the corner, staring at it for hours, his eyes wide, his breathing heavy. Then it happened. A simple mistake. His little brother, running past his desk, bumped it and shifted it just an inch. But to Sam, it felt like the world had shattered. He didn't scream. He didn't yell. He just stood up, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He looked at his brother, then at the desk, and realized the truth. The real world was full of flaws. It was chaotic, and he was the only one who could fix it. He walked slowly toward the basement door, dragging a roll of silver tape behind him. He had a plan, a completely perfect plan. As Sam walked down the cold, dark stairs, holding that roll of silver tape, his heart was beating like a wild drum. He did not feel like a monster. In his mind, he was a hero saving his world from total destruction. He pushed open the heavy wooden door of the basement. The air down there was damp and freezing cold, but Sam did not care about the cold. He only cared about the space, the empty, messy, imperfect space. He walked over to the old metal shelves in the corner. He cleared them completely in one fast motion. Books, old boxes, tools, everything crashed to the floor, creating a loud, violent noise that echoed through the empty house. Upstairs, his little brother was fast asleep. His parents were resting in their room, completely unaware that the boy who sat quietly in front of a screen all day had just snapped. Sam pulled out his phone. He opened Roblox. He looked at his virtual house on the screen. The virtual rooms were perfectly arranged. Every chair was lined up. Every wall was straight. Then he looked back at the empty basement shelf. It was time to make the real world match the game. He walked back up the stairs, stepping as quiet as a ghost. His bare feet made zero sound on the old wooden floor. He crept into his little brother's room first. The room was a disaster. Clothes were thrown on the chair. Toys were scattered across the floor. To anyone else, it was just a normal kid's messy room. But to Sam, it was a disease, a sickness that needed to be cured immediately. He leaned over his sleeping brother. His brother let out a soft sigh and rolled over. Sam froze. He held his breath for 10 long seconds, waiting, listening, hoping the boy would not wake up. When his brother went back into a deep sleep, Sam smiled in the dark. He reached out and gently lifted his sleeping brother into his arms. The boy mumbled something sleepy and heavy, but did not open his eyes. Sam carried him out of the room, step by step, all the way down into the freezing basement. He laid his brother down on the cold concrete floor, exactly in the center of the room. Not an inch to the left, not an inch to the right, perfectly centered. Then he pulled out the silver tape. He taped his brother's hands and feet, binding him tightly to a heavy wooden chair. He made sure the knots were dead straight, exactly symmetrical. When he finished, he stepped back and looked at his work. The boy was whimpering softly in the dark, asking why, begging to go back to bed. But Sam just tilted his head and whispered that everything was going to be fine, that he was just making things right. Then, Sam went back upstairs. The house was still dead silent. The clock on the wall read 3 in the morning. Time was slipping away, and Sam still had 2 more rooms to fix. He crept into his parents' bedroom next. The door was cracked open just a little bit. A thin line of light from the hallway cut across the dark floor. His dad was snoring softly. His mom was turned away, wrapped tightly in a thick blanket. Sam walked over to the side of the bed. He stared down at them. In his twisted mind, they were the biggest source of chaos in his entire life. They bought the wrong furniture. They placed things in the wrong corners. They allowed the world to be messy. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy, thick rope. He did not rush. He took his time. He moved like a shadow. First, he tied his sleeping father to the bedpost, wrapping the thick rope over and over again until his arms were pinned tight against his chest. His dad jerked awake with a sudden gasp, eyes wide with pure shock. He tried to yell. He tried to fight back, but Sam was faster. He pressed a heavy hand over his father's mouth, leaning in close to his ear, whispering so softly it sounded like a ghost, telling him to stay still, telling him that movement ruins the design. His mother woke up right after. Hearing the struggle, she screamed out in absolute terror, trying to pull herself free from the blankets. Sam did not panic. He turned around and looked at her with cold, dead eyes. His mother struggled against the tangled sheets, kicking her legs and screaming at the top of her lungs. But Sam did not even blink. He moved with a cold, mechanical speed. He grabbed the heavy winter blanket and wrapped it tightly around her face, cutting off her screams in an instant. She thrashed and fought, but the grip was too strong. Within seconds, her movement slowed down. Sam looked at them both, tied and helpless, and for the first time that night, he smiled, a wide, unnatural smile that reached all the way to his eyes. The hardest part was finally done. He forced them up onto their feet, pushing them down the narrow hallway, step by step, straight toward the basement stairs. His father stumbled and coughed, begging Sam to stop, telling him they would get him help. But Sam did not hear a single word. To him, they were just pieces on a board, moving into their correct positions. He led them down into the freezing dark. He forced his father to sit on the cold concrete floor right next to the chair where his little brother was tied. Then he pushed his mother down beside them. He used the remaining silver tape to secure them all together in a neat, tight cluster, exactly in the middle of the room. When everything was aligned, he stepped back and wiped the sweat from his forehead. The basement was quiet again, except for the soft, muffled crying of his mother and the harsh breathing of his father. Sam turned around and walked back upstairs, leaving them alone in the dark. He went straight to his own bedroom. The digital clock on his desk glowed bright red. 4 in the morning. He had 2 hours before the sun came up. 2 hours to finish his masterpiece. He sat down in his gaming chair. He turned on his monitor. The screen lit up with the bright, colorful world of Roblox. He opened his virtual house. Everything inside the game was completely empty now. He had deleted every single wall, every piece of furniture, every pixel. He wanted a fresh start, a blank canvas, using his mouse. He began to build a brand new house, a replica of his real house, room by room, wall by wall. He placed tiny virtual chairs in the exact same spots where his family was, sitting down in the cold basement. Click, click, click. The sound of his mouse filled the silent room. He was completely lost in the screen again. The real world and the virtual world blurred together until they became the exact same thing. The sun began to rise slowly, painting the sky outside with cold shades of gray and pale orange. In the real world, the morning light started creeping through the living room windows. But down in the freezing basement, there was no light at all, just total darkness and absolute silence. Sam was still sitting in his gaming chair. His eyes were red and burning. His fingers were stiff, but he didn't care. On his computer screen, the virtual house was finally complete. Every single room matched his real house down to the last millimeter. He looked at the screen, then he looked at the security camera feed he had secretly installed in the basement corners weeks ago. On his second monitor, he could see them, his little brother, his mother, and his father, sitting frozen in the dark, tied together in a perfect triangle, not moving, not making a sound. To Sam, it was art. He leaned back in his chair and let out a long, heavy breath. He whispered to the empty room that it was finally finished. Everything was in its right place, but right at that exact moment, something went wrong. Upstairs, near the front door, a sharp, loud sound cut through the silence. Knock, knock. Knock. Someone was at the door. Sam froze. His heart skipped a beat. The screen in front of him flickered. It was the local mailman, or maybe a neighbor coming to drop off a package. But whoever it was, they were standing right outside. And if they looked through the front window, they would see the messy living room. They would see that something was terribly wrong. Sam stood up so fast, his chair rolled backward and crashed into the wall. He didn't know what to do. His mind raced. The perfect world he had built was about to shatter. The heavy wooden front doors shook as the knocking started again, louder this time, persistent. Sam stood frozen in the center of his messy bedroom. His hands were shaking. On his dual monitors, the live camera feed from the basement showed his family sitting in absolute terror, waiting for a rescue that might never come. He crept toward the window, keeping his body low against the floor. He parted the blinds just a fraction of an inch and looked down at the porch. It wasn't a mailman. It was Detective Miller, the local police officer who lived just 2 streets down, holding a stack of missing person flyers and looking straight up at Sam's window. Panic spiked through Sam's chest like jagged glass. The detective's sharp eyes narrowed as he noticed the curtains twitching. Clack! The front doorbell rang, long and harsh. "Open up, Sam! I know you're in there," the officer shouted from the porch, his voice echoing through the quiet morning air. Sam backed away from the window, his breath turning shallow and fast. He looked at his computer screens. He looked at the basement camera feed. Then, with a cold, terrifying calmness, he sat back down in his gaming chair. He didn't run. He didn't hide. Instead, he opened the game's developer console on his screen. With a steady hand, he typed a single final command into the virtual world, the command to lock every door and window permanently. Downstairs, the heavy front door splintered into a million pieces as the police kicked it off its hinges. Heavy boots thundered onto the wooden floors, shouting orders and sweeping through the rooms. Sam just smiled at the glowing blue light of his monitor, putting on his headphones and listening to the familiar digital startup sound of the game. The bedroom door flew open and dark shadows rushed in, pinning him hard to the floor. But as the handcuffs clicked tightly around his wrists, Sam didn't scream or fight back. He just stared blankly at the screen, because on the monitor, his virtual world was safe, untouchable, and completely, perfectly frozen in time. Forever.